this guy has a ton of red flags,
Yeah.
in my taste, and yours too.
Today I'm joined by someone I truly admire and am happy to call a friend. You probably know him from the behavior panel, but he's also written several books on body language and behavior, including this one I've got right here, How to Spot a Liar. Greg Hartley is here with me today to break down the behavior of Jack and Lily's mom and stepdad, and there's a lot happening beneath the surface. So let's dive right in.
Congrats on your channel.
Thank you.
Glad things are going well for you.
Oh, thank you so much. I wanted to say thank you so much for all of the lessons that you have taught me the last 5 years. It's been incredible. I would not be where I am today had it not been for you guys. There would be no Prime Minister of Behavior without the behavior panel.
Well,
So
you do a
thank
great
you.
job. You do a great job on all the stuff you do too, Sadie. Look, everybody who's watching you, if you hadn't subscribed, subscribe to this channel. Sadie's one of our best friends in the whole world. She's family. She's more than friends. She's part of the team you see behind her there. So
Yeah.
Sadie's learned a lot of stuff. And remember, my whole mindset about body language and behavior is I use this whole system I call READ, read. And it's about review, put things in boxes, figure out this is this and this is that, but no meaning. Evaluate, understand how everything goes together, analyze, look at the big picture, and then take your knowledge, that D piece, take your knowledge and decipher what it means. And because of that, I think that every time somebody learns this skill set, they bring a new facet to it because they're looking at it from their life experiences, not from mine. And I always say, I'm lucky enough that I've had more than one career to learn from. And I was a good interrogator, did a lot of interrogation, but then I got the chance to live with civilians who haven't committed a crime and have to work through them. And that gave me a whole new insight into this, how these skills work. So your life skills are going to do the same for you. And no two of us will have exactly the same skill set, which is what I think is beautiful about this thing.
Absolutely.
So today I got up at 3 a.m. to leave the place I was in. I was in the airport and I was going to send this to you at 4 a.m. And I was like, yeah, that's a little bit early.
I was
But
up.
oh yeah, I figured you might. But I was just digging through videos and I really wanted to cover this case you guys are dealing with because I think we can add some value as a team. But I don't think we're going to. I think it needs some immediate action. And you and I both agreed, let's just look at it.
Mhm.
And I found 20 seconds of a clip that I just went, oh, I need to call Sadie. And that's how we got started on this conversation. And you said, well, you wait till you see see the mother. So I'd seen the father.
Yeah.
Realize I have not seen anything of the mother. Sadie's pulled some clips, and we're going to talk about those. I'm not going to preach. We're going to talk. How's that?
Perfect.
Me and my family still go out sometimes and search, but everything's been searched that we can really dive into at this time. They have over 12,000 man hours searched in the woods, and they're planning on doing more, which I'm really grateful for.
First off, what was your immediate response when you saw that 10 seconds, 20 seconds, whatever it was?
So I noticed before in another video that he did, he talks very he speaks in finality. He doesn't say, "Oh, it's ongoing," you know. He talks as if the search is already done, you know, like it's like, "Oh yeah, we did that. We searched everything. It's done."
Yeah, and some people do that.
Right.
Usually you don't think they'll do that when there's hope for their child. Some people
Right.
talk about everything in past tense. One of the things I always push back on statement analysis about is some people just are educated differently. I'm not
That's
sure
true.
he's the smartest guy in the world. So just I can't tell by this video, but I did see a couple of things. But yeah, it seems pretty closed-ended. Not, hey, can you help us?
Right.
Not, hey. I mean, for me, if my kid was missing, I'd be like, hey guys, we've done everything we know how. How
Yeah.
about you help us? Write in, send ideas, do anything. Look, you got a cell phone. Take pictures of any little kid footprints you got.
Yeah.
None of that's there. Nothing. It just feels like, well, they've been gone a few days. All right, maybe we just throw in the towel now.
Yeah.
It just feels awkward. Yeah, that part feels awkward. I agree with you.
It really feels like I mean, at the same time, it also has been over a month now at this point. I guess the interview was a few days ago that this happened.
Okay.
So it's been almost a month at this point. So I feel like at that point you would likely be
Yeah, you'd feel pretty destitute. And I say this all the time. Usually you're lost everything. I mean,
right.
I don't share this all the time, but we lost our son.
Mhm.
And in 3 weeks, I had no, and God, I can't know how Dina even got through it, but in 3 weeks, your personality is gone. You're so emotionally wrung out. You just can't. I mean, it's unimaginable. And a lost child is probably as bad or worse.
Hmm.
There's the lost child, at least there's still that glimmer of hope at the end.
Right.
But it's, I don't know. The thing for me that made the reason I called you, the reason I texted this though, is we want you to go back and watch as we talk about this. And Sadie's going to figure out how to make that really pretty because she does that for us all the time. But this guy, his speech patterns change as he's talking about where they have searched. He's got a pretty good little clip going there.
Families still go out sometimes and search, but everything's been searched. That
And then he goes to,
everything's been searched.
and I always say what's going on is the monkey brain is taking over. That cat brain, this is when the guys always joke around when I said I'm bringing a monkey to the dance. I work really hard to get people to this position where they can't think.
Right.
And he is trying to figure the right words. And he says, dive in.
Dive into at this time.
Not only does he say that, his shoulders come up and he bounces a little bit when he says it. And it's out of place. Everything, go back and watch cadence, watch pronunciation, watch volume about dive. Watch all those pieces and tell me what you see, or what do you see, Sadie? Because this is out of his base and a weird choice of words. If I were talking to law enforcement, I would start searching the water around this place.
Mm.
That's a weird choice of words. Maybe he says it all the time.
Everything's been searched that we can really dive into at this time.
My little suspicious brain is going, something's up here.
Hmm.
Embedded confessions look just like that.
Wow. When you sent me that message and you gave me that timestamp, I went right to it and I saw that and I hadn't even put that together before you had said that. And it was so shocking to see that.
Yeah, it's just such a weird word pattern change. And look, when we talk about body language, what we're really talking about is change because all of us communicate. And I always say this three pieces, two pieces. The three pieces you communicate with are gestures, illustrators, and regulators. And the two pieces that protect you are adapters and barriers. We expect a person to be fluid and speak and move their hands. He's not doing that we can see. His shoulders go up when he says dive, is the only time we see any real movement. He's communicating something, whether it's intentional or not is another question. Is he communicating we don't know where else to look? We're hopeless. But dive is a weird choice of places there. So I think I'd dig in a little bit if I were the police.
Wow. Yeah, that's great.
Weird.
Wow. So now we can watch.
The mom.
Yeah, let's
I
watch
haven't
the
seen her yet at all. So this will be interesting. And sorry, guys, we haven't gotten to this on the channel, but I think it's more important to say that you do it because you're local, you reach more people close. And yeah, and thank you for bringing me on.
Oh
Look
my
forward
gosh,
to
thank
this.
you for being here. I told you this is like a dream come true. This is like,
Don't be silly. This is your family.
oh my gosh, thank you.
I'm just staying as hopeful as possible. I want them home. I want to hold them. And I want them home. What happened was we woke up, I heard them playing in the next room beside us, and I was drifting in and out of sleep. And they're not the type of kids that we tell them not to go outside on their own. We always make sure that we're out there with them, watching them. And they happen to just get out that sliding door and we can't hear it when it opens. And they were outside playing, but we weren't aware of it at the time. And the next thing we knew, it was quiet. And we get up and I tell him, my partner, Daniel, I tell him, do you hear the kids? And he says, no. And we get up instantly. We're looking outside. We're looking everywhere, yelling for them. And I instantly just call 911. I just had the instinct I needed to call. They're both really go-lucky children. They're so sweet. They talk to anyone. They'll talk your ear off. They will speak to anyone in a store. Everyone. They're just extremely sweet kids.
Yeah, you know my first observations, just very first things. And remember, this is the first time I've seen her. Up talk, up talk, up talk when she's talking about the kids. Down talk, down talk, down talk when she's talking about what other people have said to her. That's a baseline deviation because if other people have said something and you're saying, they told me, they told me, they told me, why would you say the kids are good? They would go outside. The other question that comes to mind for me immediately, and this is without body language, if you know they go outside because you tell them not to, why don't you fix that problem? I would want to go see the door and say, how'd they get out? Because I block my own sliding door with some kind of apparatus so somebody can't open it,
Yep.
much less if children are in there so people can come in. Forget the children going out. Why wouldn't you have a lock of some kind so nobody can come in?
Hmm.
So there's a ton of questions from a logic point of view. But that up talk, she appears to have grief in her brow, but she's also in the sun, which is tough. I mean, when a person's in the sun, they may do that. I do it a lot because I'm very pale skinned and blue eyed. So in the sun, I'm doing that all the time. So it's really tough to know is the person is the person squinting
Hmm.
or showing grief? I don't see. There were a couple other things in there too. We played a fairly long clip.
Yeah.
What about you, Sadie? Because you've watched it.
Well, I noticed that she doesn't start with the way that she starts the story is at the very beginning of the day, as opposed to when you come out of the room and you see that your children are gone. I feel like
Yeah.
that would be the most important thing to highlight.
Yeah, yeah. I think that's a good call. Sometimes if it's been a while, then you then you, it's a then it may take a while, and you may go back and answer questions because people
Right.
have poked and prodded you. Like guys
This,
I've interrogated, they almost start always back at the beginning of the story if you give them a chance.
okay. This interview, for context, was the day after. So they
Oh
left
yeah,
on the Friday,
agreed.
and this is on the Saturday.
Feels like a setup. Feels like a setup then. Yep. If they're
Yes.
saying, oh, early in the morning, we heard them, and then of course, remember Cleo Smith, the little
Yeah.
girl. They said the same thing. Remember, they
Yeah.
said we could hear her in the room next to us, and then we couldn't hear her.
Hmm.
So sometimes people do feel guilty, and will tell you more details. She's at least less right out of the gate. Right out of the gate, as far as we've watched, she's at least less concerning for me than the guy, because that big word pattern disruption
Mm.
makes me want to. And look, it can be nothing,
Yeah.
but he would get undivided attention if I were in the room with him over that statement. What else did
Yeah.
you see? Because again,
There's
first
a, is
time
it,
looking at it.
yeah, and it was a long clip. I should have broken it to parts.
We can go back and watch pieces if you want. I got time for whatever you want to do. I thought I saw disgust in there one time too. I thought I saw, but it can be sunlight as well. So there's reason I didn't mention it when I saw the little nose crinkle.
It's been raining and they're probably soaking wet, but with the sun today, I'm hopeful that they are feeling warm. We're all filled with pain and sorrow because we just want them found.
Look at her
I
forehead
want,
now. When she says pain and sorrow, the horseshoe's gone. It was there earlier.
I
Yeah,
want
and,
them
and in
home.
this case, I'm less suspicious of her saying wet because she's saying it's been raining. I get that. The other guy, though, that dive thing is just so out of place. I mean, where do they
Yeah.
live? They live right on the ocean?
They live right in the middle of the woods, but there are lakes around. And I mean, it's
Okay.
Nova Scotia, so there's ocean like
Yeah, an hour away.
an hour. Yeah, if that.
Oh,
Like,
I'm just wondering because some people use dive all the time because maybe that's his hobby or that kind of thing. And
yeah,
so I'm trying to give him benefit of a doubt, but
right.
that choice of words, if you were doing a normal choice of words and you use it all the time, you would have
Yeah.
said, there's no place to dive in. That's not what he does. Everything is
Yeah.
different. Tell me what you've got, Sadie, because you probably got a ton of stuff. You've been watching this and
Oh yeah, I've been overwatching this. I feel like I've been getting too far into it. It's so interesting because to be honest, I had a lot of red flags with her, and
yeah,
I'm still on the fence with the stepfather. So there's one point where she stumbles over the word search effort, which I just
right,
stumbled over. So I guess that's not
right,
really
right.
saying much, but I
I
just
heard that.
was wondering what you thought of that.
Yeah, I heard it and I didn't assign anything to it because it's a weird, people don't use it every day. It's not
Right.
like 7-Eleven or something like that, convenience store.
Yeah.
Most of us don't ever have a reason to have search effort. We don't. I mean,
Right.
I'm a military guy, so different kind of mindset. But you would think that she would have a little. The lilting up is my problem. Search effort didn't. And let's go back and listen. I bet when she says search effort, she doesn't lilt up. She
Hmm.
only does it when she's talking about the kids.
Yeah,
She's
that's
asking for approval when she's talking about the kids and not when she's talking about other things. Good call out though, because those kinds of things sometimes are the biggest red flag.
yeah. Well, I mean, it's so there's so much going on here that there's just so many questions regarding this case in general where you just have no idea what's happening. So
Well,
everything
and
is
here's the thing: when you lose a kid, things are. I mean, God forbid, anybody deals with a kid getting kidnapped or lost or even, any of that.
Mhm.
But your brain, there's no place in your brain for that. And when it first happens, you're scrambling for trying to understand. You don't have any, you don't, this is a frame of reference problem. And if it's day one, you can be scrambling for what the hell, how this happened, what did I do wrong, even
Right.
if it is above board. Now add to that when it isn't above board, a different story. So I think we have to give them a benefit of a doubt a lot of times. And you'll hear me
Mhm.
say that, like sometimes people have no frame of reference. Sometimes there might be drugs involved, meaning they were sleeping because,
Right.
and there's guilt associated. I don't know anything about these people, but if they drank a lot the night before and they slept through and their kids disappeared, that could be guilt. So I
Yeah.
try to look for all those reasons when I'm thinking about it. And so, yeah, I appreciate you doing it this way. Sadie, it's worth looking. But that lilt up is my first red flag.
Yeah.
I appreciate the huge search effort going on right now, but we've been pushing for an Amber Alert, which hasn't been issued.
They were really adamant that they were abducted and they weren't really looking into any
Mm,
other option.
that's different. Yeah. That when a
Yeah.
person comes up with, especially if you live in the woods, you live in the
Yeah.
woods, if I live in the woods and my kids have access to a door, truly have access to a door and can go out and play, like
Yeah.
I said, number one, I'm going to bolt that door shut because these are little babies.
Absolutely.
But number two, my first horror would be they're lost in the woods.
Yes.
I'm going to try to find them. I would look for footprints and look for all that. I mean, my brain goes to logical first.
Mhm.
How would you didn't hear the door open? You didn't hear your kids scream like, "Oh my God, who's here?"
Yes.
So why would you immediately go to abducted? Unless they're saying they wandered in the woods and got abducted.
Right.
And that would mean somebody's waiting for them because they're
Yeah.
in the woods. So there's a lot of logic things when somebody immediately goes to they're abducted
Yeah.
because that disperses the search
Exactly.
quickly
Well,
and takes people off of other things.
and the interesting thing too is that they keep throughout the multiple interviews, she only did one. She only did this one. And the
Okay.
stepfather did multiple, and it's always been said that they are very friendly. They'll talk to anybody, they'll talk your ear off. So it makes it
Okay.
seem like they're kind of setting it up so that they're, oh, you know, they were abducted, kind of like pushing
Yeah.
the
Yeah.
attention elsewhere.
Well, that's when a person immediately goes to abduction. Of course, that's a fear of all parents that their
Right.
child's abducted if they're out. But that's more likely to happen if you're in a populated area.
For sure.
You live on acreage, especially if you have dogs and all that kind of thing. I don't know anything about their situation.
Hmm.
When people go that way, when they know they insist they're abducted, then you're like, okay, how could that possibly be? We're in the
Yeah.
woods. The McCanns immediately said she's abducted.
Hmm.
Well, of course they did because they're in a very tightly populated area and she's disappeared.
Right.
And they walked all around the place and looked. And people will say that that's criminal that they did something. By the way, there's a brand new search going on right now in Portugal for the
Mm.
two places that guy who's the prime suspect occupied looking for remains.
Wow.
So for the McCanns, just to give you an example, this is 19 years later.
Holy.
So children can disappear into thin air and it can be an abduction. So I understand why people would feel that way. But
Hmm.
like you, that would be your first call if your kids were not where they were supposed to be, where you
Yeah.
live. You'd be like, oh my God, they're in the woods.
Yeah. There's
What's
bears.
dangerous?
Like
Yeah,
there's
bears, bears.
yeah. Yeah.
You know,
Yeah. I would not jump to that. Um yeah, it's very interesting that was, and it seems like that was a big point for them, just continuously trying to push Amber Alert, somebody abducted them.
so let's talk about something you can. Let's remember we talked about D and read.
Mhm.
The most important thing is the D. Let's talk about how you would react. Not just you, but your neighbors. You live in
Mhm.
the same province. You live in a very wooded area, not far from there.
Yeah.
And your immediate reaction would be, hey, where are my kids?
Yeah.
What else? What's abnormal from a cultural point of view that you're noticing that I
Mm.
wouldn't pick up on?
Right. Huh, I guess that I feel like there's just so much. Like I think that's why I'm so drawn to this case, because there's so much to it that I'm finding so many things abnormal. It's not just like one thing, it's everything. Like even like you said, the door, they say that the sliding door is quiet and they snuck out of it.
Put a
And
bell on the damn thing. I mean,
but
come
it's
on.
but even looking, there's like a picture that was taken of it, and it does not look silent. It does not look like a quiet door that a 6-year-old and a 4-year-old could open easily.
Right.
And I mean, same thing. We have one of those doors in our bedrooms, and there's a 2x4 like blocking it, so it can't open. So I don't know. There's
Well,
just
it doesn't pass the sniff test for logic, number one. We all are going, something's wrong.
yeah,
Then when I hear that up talk, if we go back and listen to that up talk, we can
yeah,
figure out which parts she up talked and which parts she didn't, and say, is there a problem there?
yeah.
Because I always say body language is what brought me to the YouTube channel, but I'm really a motivation guy. I'm about what's going on in somebody's head when they're doing this. And so I look, big ears, little eyes. I listen first and then look. So I hear those things. They scream at me when a person's doing all that up talk.
Wow. That's very interesting. I noticed that on I Want Them Home. She
Yeah.
does an
Whoop,
uptalk.
whoop, whoop.
Um and it just really it seems so uncertain that she wants them home, which is weird. And then she does a shoulder shrug when she says
Single.
I want them home again for the second time. She does a double shoulder shrug.
Yeah. And that can, if your hands are up, that can be helplessness. Look, I want them home. That can be
Yeah.
helplessness. But if
So
it's
let's
that,
see. Yeah,
yeah, that'd be
let's see,
interesting to
because
see.
that's right at the start, and then we can watch the up talk, the tone
Okay.
as
Yeah,
well
that
at the
sounds
same
cool.
time.
As hopeful as possible. I want them home. I want to hold them. And I want them home. What happened was we woke up, I heard them playing in the next room beside us, and I was drifting in and out of sleep. And they're not the type of kids that we tell them not to go outside on their own. We always make sure that we're out there with them, watching them. And they happen to just get out that sliding door, and we can't hear it when it opens.
So here, you hear that and
Yes.
those are opportunities. It doesn't mean that the person's being deceptive.
Okay.
Anytime a person says and, that is a shortened version of and then after that.
Right.
And that's called time hiding.
Yes.
There's any time a person uses a contracted time, there's a problem.
Mhm.
Because remember, I talk about occasionally micro interview. And a micro interview says, you said and, hold on, let's open that up. And
Mm.
then you listen. This is a beautiful way to catch a lot of liars. They're running along, they're going boom, 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 and then after that, everything else goes away. You pick the and then, and then you open that up. And you say, okay, let's narrow this down a little bit. And you just keep doing that until you find the anomaly. And often body language comes with it because that and then is the smoothest way to pass over omitted time.
Hmm.
And omitted time, I always use the example. I went to write my ex-wife her alimony check and then went home, but you backed over. You just didn't mention it. That's the way people lie. It's the easiest way. If I can glide over something, again, not saying that's the case, but it's a good indicator. She's saying and that you need to clean it up and ask some questions. Might be your normal speech pattern.
I did actually notice that the and hiding time.
People do it to you every day, so you don't notice it's the problem. And then and after that, and what's interesting is like the forward and backward pass that you use. I didn't learn that in interrogation. I learned that actually running construction projects because you forward and backward pass construction to make sure you're not missing anything. And I was teaching interrogation still at the time at lettered agencies up in DC. And I said, look, forward backward pass is a powerful tool we use in project management. They can take a story apart because timelines are nobody practices backward.
Right. Yeah, it's like doing the alphabet backwards.
Yeah, exactly. Yep. I always think it's unfair when they're trying to pull somebody over and they're trying to catch them for drunk driving. They say that the alphabet backwards. I'm like, I'm
Yeah.
drunk, man. I'm drunk right now.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. I don't know how to do
Yeah.
that, and I'm sober. Like
Yeah. Yep. Exactly.
yeah, I think that that's pretty much it that most of the things that I have except yeah, I guess we kind of went over they're so sweet. They talk to
Yeah.
anyone.
Go play that little piece too. Because that's where the lilting starts. Right after that, I think is where the lilting gets worse. Right.
Yeah.
They're both really go-lucky children. They're so sweet. They talk to anyone. They'll talk your ear off. They will speak to anyone in a store. Everyone. they're just extremely sweet kids.
Not a whole lot. There's just opportunities for her to hide information that I would not leave alone, right?
Right.
And there's some logic gaps. Your culture, you know the culture. Look, most
Mhm.
of the people who are going to watch you, you could have 1 million people watch this, and 20 would probably know the culture because you live in a very secluded area, very
Yeah.
isolated area. And so you'll have more understanding. So talk about that
Hmm.
in your analysis. Say, look, I live in this world.
Yeah.
This is not how things go. Where I
No.
live in the part of Georgia I live in, we recognize outsiders very quickly. We all do because the
Right.
world is very different here. So take advantage. Remember, I always said everybody's born able to do the same things unless they have a disability.
Hmm.
And then we start assigning meaning to body language. And
Yeah.
then culture's primary power in body language is to pair your ability to do things.
Right.
So, your little kid will come in the room using a middle finger and you'll go, stop,
Yeah.
because it means something. Or in the
Yeah.
Middle East, it wouldn't mean the same thing.
Right.
Your little kid runs in and does that. Doesn't mean the same thing in UK.
Yeah.
So all those places, we start assigning meaning to it. And there's a lot of cultural anomaly, number one, in a given region, but also in the kind of people who move to wilderness.
Right.
I mean, you and I share a love for no neighbors up close. And my neighbors, I can't see one.
Yeah.
I've got one that's about 300 yards from me. Good guy, good friend, a cop. We get along great. And then the neighbors drop off from there.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, one of the points that the stepfather made was that they wouldn't cross the street. So it's very strange because I have a 6-year-old and it's very much like if she wanted to cross the street, she would
Oh
probably
yeah.
cross the street. If she felt like crossing, which she's not allowed to, but it doesn't mean they won't.
Sadie, this is a really weird one because the likelihood that this kid's just walked off.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. It really it does not seem likely and it's and the fact that they're pushing the abduction is even
Yeah.
more concerning.
That's a big red flag. It is a big red flag. And look, some people would do that because they want the government involved in everything. But usually people who move out to the woods
Yeah.
don't want a lot of government involved.
No.
I mean, the last place you want to call is the government and say, hey, do this.
Yep. Also, for more context, I didn't want to say this beforehand, but the mother left the property after that interview that she had with the media. So
Mhm.
apparently the stepfather and the mother got in a big fight of some
Mhm.
kind,
Yeah.
and now she's gone. She's left the property.
Interesting.
Yes.
That could say something about a whole lot of things. Would you leave that alone for a minute?
Yeah. All right. So here's the stepfather.
I know they took their boots. That's pink boots for Lily, blue boots for Jack with dinosaurs on them. Lily had her backpack with white, and it was white with strawberries on it.
What?
I imagine now if they're in the woods that it'd be probably brown, but I don't see them carrying their backpack. I don't see them keeping a pull-up on for that long after it got soaked from the very first day. We only found the 2 boot tracks outside of the house.
Whereabouts?
Right beside the house, probably 10 feet away from the backyard.
In the backyard, okay.
Nothing new, other than the helicopters are still in the air, and they had dogs. They took around the dogs today, and
I see one thing right off the bat. Why do you ask, Sadie? Why do you ask? They had their boots. You see that eye lock? Boom.
Yeah.
Something's up with eye lock like that. Now, maybe he's just socially awkward because, they said their kids are on the spectrum. It's possible he's got something going on there. But that hard eye lock is not typical of people on the spectrum either. Most of the time, they're all over the place.
Right.
But that hard eye contact, we always suspect a person when they do it. Scott and I, oddly enough, I have this thing up behind me still from last week from the show we just did for Thursday. And in that was where we talk about romancer. Remember that hard eye contact. I want to make sure that you are paying attention to me and I want to make sure of how things go.
Yeah.
Usually people are moving their eyes, especially in accessing. If we go back and look and he's going, it was blue boots and pink boots and then a white backpack with red somethings on it.
Huh.
That's hard to do. I mean, let me ask you this. What's your little girl wearing right now? Watch your eyes.
Oh my goodness. Yeah, that's so true.
You know they took their boots. That's pink boots for Lily, blue boots for Jack with dinosaurs on them.
See what I
Wow.
Her
mean?
backpack.
I would be suspicious of this guy on a
Yeah.
grand scale because that eye movement he does downright. They took their boots. Remember, eye movement for
Yeah.
me is a powerful thing. I'm the guy on the team who's always saying, "Boom, pay attention to it."
Yeah.
And if you want me to give you a 5 minute session on what that looks like and how it works, happy to.
Yeah.
So I'm going to use you. I'm going to use you.
Okay.
Okay.
Oh no.
So tell me what you had for breakfast.
Uh
Boom. See it? And tell me the last thing your daughter said to you before you started this podcast.
Oh my goodness.
Boom. There you go. You see what I mean? All we're after is getting a baseline. Your baseline is probably to the left, and I think you were trying to remember what you had for breakfast, and you're probably
Yeah.
trying to string stuff together because I think your baseline is left. So if I
Hmm.
ask you a question, if you were to walk out, and if I'm right, we'll play it by ear because I have never baselined you. I don't do it to people I care about. But if if I ask you this question, I'm right, your eyes are going to go up left. You let them do what they do. If you walk out your back door, which direction do you have to look to see the wood pile?
Mm.
There you go. That's what I'm after. You see? Now, and then here's the second question. If you walk to the wood pile and look to your right, what do you see?
Hmm.
Now you're not sure. Is
No,
that
I'm
right?
not sure.
Is right.
No.
Yeah. So good. That's good. I think you're still a left baseliner anyway. So if I ask you, well, you got a favorite song?
Yeah. I can't think
And
of it
what is
right
it?
now.
Okay. Well, yeah, favorite poetry, favorite any words that you like.
I've
What's
been
on your
listening.
arm? What's on your arm?
Every day in every way I'm getting better and better.
So that you remember that. You don't have to
Yeah,
think about it.
I don't have to look.
So what's cool about eye movement is what we do is we ask for a baseline. And the baseline's pretty simple. I'm going to ask you questions that force you to use your visual cortex. And
Right.
there's lots of reasons people think this works. Some people think it don't. This is Bandler. This is Richard Bandler. I talked to him a while ago, by the way. I've asked him to do an interview, and I'll put that on a YouTube channel, even though I'm not doing a lot
Oh,
with my YouTube
yes.
channel.
You
But
should.
it uses your visual cortex, and so your eyes are going high in your head, meaning
Mm.
above your brow ridge, looking up. And you just
Right.
did that, either right or left. And
Mm.
we ask a question that we want the person to answer so we can figure out where they go, left or right. That's visual, up above the brow ridge.
Right.
Sound is usually between the brow ridge and the cheekbone, either
Wow.
left or right. And we ask a question for memory, like your favorite song, like your favorite sentence, whatever it is. So the
Mm.
person goes and looks left or right for their baseline, and then we know they're left or right. And then down to the right is emotion, down to
Right.
the left is internal voice. We see
Mm.
him go to emotion when he's talking about what they were wearing.
Mm.
Don't know why. I want to poke and prod and try to figure out, understand it a little bit. If I were poking and prodding and asking questions, I would try to baseline him pretty quickly. But he's not really even accessing after the emotional part. He's
Mhm.
just looking at you and saying, and they were red and blue and yeah, because he knows what they were wearing,
Yeah.
likely. He's not having to remember. If you, almost every one of these people, the McCanns, anybody else, when you ask them what their kid was wearing, they have to remember.
Right.
That's why you usually know they're not, this is an odd one. This is another red flag.
Mm.
I urge the public to come out if you have anything, come out as fast as possible and get it to any detachment or any police service that you have available to get to talk to. And Jack just absolutely loves bugs, dinosaurs, anything like that. Lily loves girly things, but she also loves doing everything with Jack, bugs. They're like best friends.
This kid's on my radar.
He said loved in past
Yeah, yeah.
tense there.
But even better,
Yeah. Yes.
there's no emotion, no tears, no
No.
anything else. There's some contempt
Yeah.
or disgust. I can't tell which. You'd have to go
Right.
back and watch it. But early in, he's going to go to whatever police.
Any detachment or any police service that you have available.
Yeah.
He exposes his teeth. Either he's in contempt or, it's an exposing of canines, one or the other.
Yeah.
I'm not sure which, but if you go back, you can freeze it and find it.
Yes.
There's a whole lot of mismatched signaling coming from this guy.
Wow.
Looking you dead in the eyes when he's trying to access, and then the fake cry. And I mean,
Yes.
it's just a whole lot. And then, yeah, loved. Yeah.
Yes. I noticed as
Beautiful
soon as
catch.
he broke away, he immediately checked to see if his story was being bought. He was like,
Confirming glance. Yeah.
Yeah.
It was almost like Phantom of the Opera or something.
Yeah. Yes. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, so that I had to show you because yeah, that's just it's
Well,
something.
he's red flag boy for sure. And
Yes.
now remember, let's talk about dynamics of relationship.
Right.
It's entirely possible that something happened that she was not part of
Right.
and that she was suspicious of
Mhm.
and but party to and guilty feelings for. And it's
Yeah.
entirely possible they just feel guilty from the people being gone. But this guy has a ton of red flags
Yeah.
in my taste, and yours too.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
You probably got a ton more.
The big thing is that a lot of his stories are just very repetitive. And this is not in this video specifically, but like in many of his videos he repeats himself word for word. He goes like the story that he tells is exactly the same. It doesn't change
Yeah.
at all. And it's like there's no you're it's you can tell that he's retelling a story that he's thought of as opposed to reliving a memory because I mean obviously when you go back to a memory you
Yeah.
it changes every time you go back to
Well, it's
it.
normal when you get much older, you've lived through something for a long time. Like if I tell you a story about the Middle East, it's not going to be identical, but it's going to be damn
Right.
close
Of
because
course.
I remember the parts that matter that people want to know and that kind of
Yeah.
thing. And because it becomes rote,
Yeah.
neural pathways, as you know,
Yeah.
2000 passes, it's there. And so a lot of the time, what will happen is your story will stay really tight as you get older because
Right.
you've dressed it a few times for people's consumption,
Yeah.
but not early. Early,
No.
it's my most stressful moments in my life. Early, I would have a hard time putting the story together exactly the same way every time because
Yes.
you're thinking, why did that happen? Why did that happen? Why did that happen?
Yeah.
And then you're trying to figure. I mean, think of the most stressful thing that's ever happened to you in your life,
Hmm.
and if it's 10 years later, okay, you repeat the story pretty much the same way.
Yeah.
But when you're trying to sort it out, my opinion, one of the hardest things for human brains to do is to store information you have no box for.
Right.
I think what my opinion, this is just my opinion, I think what most people call PTSD is there's no place in their mechanism, in their schema, in their database to plug something in. And
Yeah.
so it never gets settled. It just rolls around in their head the rest of their life. I
Wow.
mean, I'll give you the first Gulf War. I went there. I was working at SEER school. I was doing violent physical things every day of my life. And when I went to war, it was war. I
Wow.
expected people to get killed and hurt. And yeah, it bothered me, of course, but there were places for that to go in my head.
Wow.
On the other hand, guys who had never thought of any of that kind of stuff, we're not dealing with violent world or any of that kind of stuff, it was a lot harder for them. And they had no concept of Middle Eastern politics and how people treat each other and all of that kind of thing. So
Mm.
it was tougher for those guys than it was for those of us who had spent our time studying that part of the world.
Right.
And I think a lot of soldiers don't are not ready for the things they see. There's no mailbox to put them in, and therapy can help land it somewhere. That's what
Hmm.
I think therapy does best is help you sort. So if you don't have a place to put stuff in your head, it's going to be there rolling around. And it is the reason I ramble that long about what I'm talking about is because your brain is trying to normalize that stuff.
Hmm.
It doesn't immediately go to this is the story.
Yeah.
We don't talk that way. We don't say,
No.
oh, they went outside, they had on these shoes, they walked 20 yards, they disappeared.
Hmm.
That doesn't set well with an adult. That
No.
two children could vanish that easily.
Yeah, definitely not. It's not accurate, especially for a 6 and a 4-year-old. They just
Yeah.
wouldn't you wouldn't see that happen. And I don't know, it's just everything
But
about this is
that's adult. I agree with you 100%. That's an adult way of thinking. I've
yeah.
had enough of your, excuse my language, I had enough of your shit. I'm going to put my backpack on and leave.
Yeah.
What 6-year-old does that? I've had enough of
Yeah.
you. Unless they've seen it from adults,
Yeah,
then they
that's
may
true.
emulate that behavior.
Hmm.
So,
Interesting.
yeah, there's all
Actually,
kinds of
this
stuff here that makes it interesting.
yeah, it is. This just made me think my son today put on a backpack and he's 9 and he walked down the street with his backpack on. He's leaving home. And so it just
That's
made me
funny.
think of that. But he certainly didn't make it. Well, he just went down the street and came right back because he knows that he knows.
They're bears.
Yes, I feel like the 6-year-old and this 4-year-old were I mean, if they had wandered off, they should have known better. They should have been taught better. If they're living in the middle of the
Right.
woods, you should know what is at stake in the middle of the woods. So
Right.
that's another big thing where, yeah, it just doesn't sit right. It seems very off.
Well, and for me, the pile of red flags is on him. And she's got some wilting, she's got some hiding time words,
Mm.
but nothing that screams, except for that forehead going away to concerned and losing the grief muscle when she starts to talk about grieving things closer to the end. That's the only thing. And there's some red flags in there for sure we talked about, but
Hmm.
not like there's a lot of screaming stuff with this guy. Maybe
Yeah.
it's because he's neurodivergent or something, but it's interesting.
You said they're flying in someone to do a polygraph test. Is that on you?
That's not just on me, but on everyone. That's what I asked for. I asked for that so early on, and there's not many places that do it in Canada, so they're flying somebody in.
Why do you think you need to do that? Do you think they don't believe you?
I think their side of the family doesn't believe me, and I just want to clear it up for everyone. Clear it up for everyone, not just the people online making crazy accusations and everything else.
Well, a whole lot of downright there, if you notice, a whole lot of downright, but that
Hmm.
could be because of the accusations. That could be because of a lot of other things. There's a whole lot of grief muscle here that we didn't see as much before
Yeah.
around the lie detector. That
Hmm.
maybe he'll get Jim Smith.
I hope so. Oh my goodness.
That would be
Well,
great.
I thought it was interesting because him pointing out the crazy accusations online
Yeah,
um really just is like it's making it about him and not about the
right,
kids. I thought that that
right.
was interesting. What did you think of
Well,
that?
I will say they're not his kids. They're
Hmm.
somebody else's kids. They're stepchildren, and some people can't
Yes.
deal well with that. Yeah, my son was my stepson, and I loved him more than anything in the world. Never ever thought I would have kids. And then when we were, because I was 40 when I settled down.
Hmm.
So for me, it was one of the best parts of my life. Some people don't feel that way about their spouse's children. So they don't have the connection. And how long have they been together?
2 years, I think, 2 or 3 years.
Yeah, a lot of times, if this guy doesn't have a real connection with those children, the grief around him will
Mm.
be more powerful than the grief around the children about all the accusations and that stuff. So
Right.
I try to listen to I try and you know me, I try to advocate and give everybody an
Of course.
opportunity and say what's possibly
Yeah.
happening. That still doesn't mean I trust this guy.
No.
So just because he's showing more grief around being polygraphed and accusations, not surprised.
Yeah.
And how old are they? 30-ish, somewhere in there.
Yeah, I think so.
There's
Yeah.
this really interesting study I read years ago. I'll have to find and quote it, but they show babies to men and women. All women's pupils dilate when they see babies.
Mm.
All young men's pupils are dependent whether they dilate or not.
Mm.
If they are pair bonded with a woman in there, and I don't know, they've tried this with gay men or any of that, but when they're pair bonded with a woman, their pupils dilate when they see babies. So there's something about relationship that changes things too.
Hmm.
And young men typically are like, eh. I grew up in a world where everybody was, I said this to somebody yesterday. I grew up in a world where everybody was fit, young, and had a long life ahead of them, except for combat. So most of my friends were between 25 and 35.
Hmm.
The old guys were getting ready to retire by 38 and 40, right in there. So we had an artificial sense of what's normal.
Hmm.
And, young men typically don't think about things the same way young women do. You're better at paying attention to a lot of detail that young men don't, even
Right.
military guys, because we are focused on different kinds of things. And your brains notice details on a level that ours just simply don't.
Hmm.
They're looking for different things. They're paying attention to the connection between things. And, people will somebody watching this will be upset because I say your brains are designed for nurture and ours are not. They're just
Yeah.
not. We can learn. Don't get me wrong. We can learn. But your brain constantly pays attention to things and looks at it 50 times.
Mm.
My brain goes, I got a plan and we're going to get it done.
Yeah.
It's the way our brains are wired. Now, that doesn't mean that either one of us is going to be better than the other in a skill set because of that. But it means that her story is going to be more, and
Hmm.
his is going to be a big sweeping, moving thing with big blocks. And that's what we're seeing. It's about the family. You see what I mean?
Yeah.
Where she's talking about the kids and about what happened and what could be going on and the search. He's going, they're gone. They
Mm.
took their backpack and left. He's telling big stories that he came to tell. And
Yeah.
then he's also in this piece doing something that's all about how people feel about him,
Yeah.
how people, and it's not just me, it's everybody. I'm going to have everybody. If
Yeah.
Mark were here, Mark would say, everybody in Nova Scotia is getting polygraphed. So, Mark reads into those big disclaimers. He's like, no, they can't disclaim, they can't polygraph everybody. I might
Yeah.
be there. What are they going to polygraph me? So he's talking in big sweeping terms that he's trying to fix the problem, all this kind of stuff. That again makes you go, why do you want everybody polygraphed? Who was at your house? That might be who I would start with. Who was there yesterday, the day before?
Yeah, that's a really good point. And I think again, I feel like a lot of what these people do is
Yep.
they really just try to redirect the attention off of them. That's kind of the impression that I'm getting.
Well, no, I agree with you here. When he does that broadening of the possible, this is as Chase would, what does he always say? Something about in introducing vagueness or introducing ambiguity.
Yeah,
So, I interrogated prisoners for 20 years. Prisoners try to avoid answering questions.
right.
It's what they do best because they got all the time in the world on their hands. This feels a lot like, yeah, everybody. Now we're getting to big terms. We're getting to big things where everybody's possibly a suspect.
Yeah,
Because if everybody's a suspect, then I'm less likely to be the guy. So yeah,
right.
you see it. I agree with you there.
Hmm.
Good call.
Thank you.
You mentioned last time we chatted that you'd offered to do a polygraph test.
That is
Has
correct.
that already happened?
That has happened.
Eh,
And did you get results from that yet?
I do have results, and I don't know if I can share those results, but they were good in my favor, we'll say that. Trust the RCMP word, and I mean, you don't have to trust my word, but I'm the only one doing media for Jack and Lilly, trying to keep the story alive and get them found.
two things right off. And remember, this is the first time I've watched this.
Yeah,
Moral high ground and
yeah.
rising up on those feet and leaning in. So yeah, people will say rising on your feet is a gravity defying act. It's also an adapter.
Hmm.
At the end of the day, energy's got to go somewhere. And he's taking moral high ground. Look, it's me. I'm the only person. Did you see any illustrators?
Mm-mm.
Something missing.
Wow.
What do you have? Because you watched this before. You probably have a whole lot of stuff to.
Well, I didn't know. I'm so torn on this because I was just thinking of like the implications of if he was not telling the truth there
Right?
versus, I
Yep.
mean, but it's also just like a very vague answer that he's given. He doesn't
I
straight
think
up say yes or
I
no.
don't think this guy might be quite capable of giving good direct. Because people, the communication styles come and go with people, and
Yeah.
this is the reason I'm always funny about using tense because people change tenses casually. Not like loved. That's a different story.
Yeah.
But people change tenses casually. I'm from South Georgia, and people there talk in multiple tenses in the same sentence sometimes. It's
Right.
just like, and it has to do with education,
Right.
with colloquial speech patterns. I mean, you live in the woods, some of your neighbors have great speech patterns. Others,
Yeah.
you can't understand them. It's just the nature of the people. So I'm
Yeah.
careful with that, all of that. The movement, and look, this is the cool part of what we do. If I were going back and analyzing these guys, I'd go back through with a fine tooth comb.
Mm.
But what we can say, and what I always said as an interrogator is, you just got my attention. Now I'll dig in. I may say you didn't do anything wrong when I'm done, but this guy would really not like the level of attention I would give him because of a handful of things. And if
Yeah.
he thinks people think he's done something wrong, ding, 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 red flag, red flag, red flag. It doesn't mean you did anything, but it does mean you've given us reason to be suspicious.
Mm.
And that's enough because they're babies. These are children. You shouldn't be angry when people are trying to help you. You should be angry if they're accusing you. And
Mhm.
that we expect that. We should expect the guy to be a little more agitated if he's being accused of killing his stepchildren or doing something to disappear his stepchildren. You would
Mhm.
think he'd be pretty adamant and pretty angry.
Yeah.
So I see energy movement. I see all that. I don't see a lot of, I didn't do anything. I don't see a lot of
Yeah.
illustrators. I don't see a lot of denial or emphatic behavior, chin thrusts, and those kinds of things, defiance.
Yeah.
We also don't know anything about him.
Right.
Has he been in jail? Has he been? So there's a ton of stuff to learn.
Yeah. There's a lot of unknowns.
Really good videos, though, Sadie.
Thank you. I'm again, thank you so much for watching them with me and your brilliant commentary. It's just been,
I don't know about that. It's just what I notice, it's just
oh, I love it. It's so great.
well, this is so my process when I pick videos is all I do is I go through and I go, okay, that looks. I'm watching it at double speed a lot of times, and I go,
Yeah.
I see body language. I can tell you something's going on here. I won't even try to analyze it altogether.
Hmm.
First pass, I just go, boom, it's double speed. I clip because there's a message, there's a story they're trying to tell or hide,
Yeah.
and I put that in a box. I mean, you've seen my program files. Sometimes those are 47 clips that have been cut to six.
Oh my gosh.
And I picked the top six in terms of what's content and how stressful it is. And then I don't really pay attention. I don't ever go back and look until the day before we're doing the show. And then
Hmm.
I turn it on and I watch and I make notes,
Yeah.
that kind of thing. So seeing something the first time is always interesting because
Yeah.
this is hip shooting for you. I mean, this is what I do to hip shoot.
I love it. Oh, that's amazing. Well, yeah, I can't thank you enough for coming on to
Oh no, don't be.
my little show.
No, it's not your little show. It's your beginning show. That's
Yes.
Yeah, it's
Yeah.
going to do big things. And
Thank you.
guys, I'm not kidding. Tell people about Sadie's show. Sadie's been with us for 5 years now. 5 years.
Yeah.
And Sadie does
About
all
that.
the wonderful edits on our show. She knows this stuff inside out. We've been doing a lot of stuff together. So have people come watch and get Sadie's perspective on things, especially things where she has a unique perspective on the culture, the people, and the place they're living. This is not far from her.
Yeah. Yeah. Thank you.
Oh, my pleasure, Sadie.
Well, everybody, that was it. Thank you so much for watching, and a huge thank you to Greg Hartley for lending his insight and breaking this down with me. If anything stood out to you or you saw something we missed, please drop it in the comments below. Like this video and subscribe if you want more breakdowns just like this. I've got a lot more coming. I'll see you in the next one.